All right, we are live now. Hello, YouTube. My name is Derek, the artist formerly known as Spacepan, now the Antisocial Contract. It's all the same. It's all just me. And I like to talk about gender-related issues from an anti-feminist perspective. And since I'm also an anarchist and an atheist, those perspectives are a little bit, you know, braided together. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and that's kind of the lens that I view things through and like to talk about. And sometimes I like to talk about things with guests. So today we have Jay Willie, and we're going to talk about one of his favorite. It's basically his Moby Dick, right? This issue of of how basically sexist, traditionalist, feminist laws gatekeep reproduction by limiting access to surrogacy and basically doing this for reasons that are really hypocritical. So we're going to be talking about lots of double standards, lots of sexism, homophobia, but mostly misandry. And that's what this series aims to expose through essentially appropriating the concept of intersectionality from these third wave feminists who think they're using it. They understand a lot of correct things in principle and in theory and then apply it horribly. Yeah, and that's a lot of what we're exposing here. So that's interesting to you. Hopefully you want to stick around. And now I've set the stage. Jay Willie, go ahead and talk.
Uh, yeah, so therefore I'm gonna start. As you said, yeah, like basically one thing I have noticed, and when it comes to reproductive ability, especially when it comes to sex, is that even when it comes to, sorry for scratching my eyes, they're unprofessional, but who cares? We know that in biology, animals of sexually dimorphic species tend to not have the same reproductive success as each other. Um, and humans are a species where it's much easier and we are way more likely to breed if you are fertile when you're female than if you are a male. Yeah, and that is just nature, right? And that's not something I inherently consider to be a problem, because I don't consider nature itself to be a problem. You are disadvantaged because of your sex, biologically speaking. But there are things that you can do as a society or as an individual to address that, and frankly should. Um, but it's also a problem because sometimes many of these biological limitations that humans have based on sex and other aspects that we're going to get into or have gotten into in the past, it's not just due to your biology. It's actually that you are being disadvantaged through the government, right? So if you have a disadvantage existing by itself, it is a disadvantage. Whenever that becomes part of a social structure and enforced on non-consenting parties, then it becomes a form of oppression. And currently we have in society that even though you have way more women breeding than men in nature, which is normal, but so therefore there is an inequality there in nature, which is fine, right? But then the state basically is making that inequality greater, which is a form of injustice, in my opinion. And one way, not the main way, not the only way, but one way that's happening is that it's like one way we're not going to discuss is is attempts to make male involvement in family rearing. It's saying to decouple men from the family, but that's not our main issue here, right? We know that's happening. We know that's a problem, but therefore there are other ways that men can use in order to gain access to families, right? But then there are people trying to prevent that from happening too, right? And now I'm
So
gonna
wait,
go back.
before we go too far into all this, because these are basically different motivations and ways, right, that reproduction is being limited and gatekept. And like the first thing you were getting into or noticing is like a lot of this is downstream just from nature, right?
Yeah.
And like so one thing I like to point out is, there's this term that gets thrown around called structural violence. Now, the reason people use that term is because they want to take something that's just like a bad circumstance or something in nature or a storm or whatever, and by packaging it that way, there's a suggestion that there's some kind of a perpetrator, right? And then therefore you give yourself the mental ability to support using like violence and retaliation because now there's like an agent, right, who's doing it. Oh, this wasn't just bad luck. This wasn't just nature. This wasn't just unfairness in reality. This was structural violence. This was violence against me. that I'm allowed to defend myself against, right? So structural violence is stupid, but like one way that you can tell, like a really great analogy for this, we can prove that basically most women and a lot of men, probably a smaller percent, but a lot of them, like most people who are kind of copy shop feminists, right? Most people who are like really unenlightened and haven't looked into anything related to men's issues or anti-feminism, you know, blue pillars, purple pillars, even, like they'll unironically believe in the quote unquote pink tax, right? And they'll say that like tampons should be free, birth control should be free, right? Because it's not fair, right? That you have these extra things that require you to like upkeep and maintain your hygiene and your health, and it's downstream from nature. So if you look at people's attitudes, like anybody who thinks, you know, that things like tampons and birth control should be subsidized, right? Well, if you haven't looked at just access to the ability to be a parent in terms of female privilege, right? Downstream from nature, it would necessarily logically follow that you would support measures that give men more easy access to being able to have families to the point where it becomes equal, right? But that's if you have a perspective that says that we should be equalizing outcomes that dish out to us via nature in an unfair way. Like obviously most libertarian perspectives kind of aren't highly invested in those sorts of corrections, certainly not from a government perspective, right? It's sort of like if you're gifted with abilities, we don't say, oh, well, you have to support people with less abilities. You're required to, right? But anyway,
Yeah.
I just want to point out that like there's a lot of longstanding issues that are like really just core things that people support without thinking about. And if they support those things, well, when you look at this, like you're a hypocrite for staying silent on it, right? So anyway,
But there's even like not only that, but like it's basically the risk that a woman have when it comes to becoming a mother is if the father is he going to be there? Is he going to just go over and impregnate someone else? But the government, yeah, and I'm not saying that like women should not be precautious about that, because if a guy doesn't want to be with you, getting pregnant by him is actually kind of like, it could be quite a rough place to be as a woman.
not just
Totally,
that. You have a duty to avoid that happening in a society.
exactly. You're even evolved to avoid that.
Yeah, you have a duty to try to avoid that actively.
Yeah, and most women can do that pretty well, but
they don't realize that that's the context of it, right? They view it as like, if that happens to me, I'm the victim, which is like there's truth to that. But at the same time, if you're gonna have some public concern and a shared pool of resources, like that does kind of mean like you don't deliberately test the fucking safety net that you've been privileged with, you know? And like being irresponsible and overusing that net is a bad thing. And like if people had more of that perspective, right, then they would take more measures and be more vigilant. But they're being sold a false narrative, and it's kind of a false compassion, right? It is really cowardice, but it at the surface level seems like you're being more empathetic and seems like you're being more compassionate. You know, when you say, "Oh, well, we don't know anyone else's circumstances. You should never judge anyone. Everyone makes mistakes," and like all that's true, sure, and like people shouldn't lose that. But at the same time, if you have empathy and care and concern for people, you're looking at, well, here's a public problem, you know, caused by these public policies where we have this, you know, it's a tragedy of the commons style issue, right?
yeah, and I'm getting into that now because what I wanted to mention is that we have like, and when it comes to biased family court, right? It's much easier for a woman to keep kids after divorce, and she also gets child support regardless if the divorce was initiated by the woman or the man, and it is most likely the woman, statistically speaking. And even if it wasn't divorce, it was a one night stand, right? But like if a man had a one night stand with a woman, he can't gank the government to give him a kid and pay for it, for example.
Right.
And I'm not saying that he should be allowed to do that, by the way, but I'm saying that he can, right? Cannot do that. But it's also that even so, like we have society and we basically say that if you have some kids, you should be responsible for your kids, and that is mandated by a law. I'm not against that you should be responsible for your children, but I am also, and I'm not against that you, as a society, says that you should stick around for your children. I'm not against that at all, but I'm saying that a guy actually to put his own investment in one family and one kid, that is limiting what he could be doing reproductively, right? But he's still doing that because we understand that that's good for the kids and they're good for society, right? So that's fine. And also, men having one wife rather than multiple, meaning that more men are going to be able to not be incels, basically. So that's a very good social construct that we have. That
Well, wait a minute. Men having multiple wives, I think that would actually increase in seldom, right?
yeah, that's my point. It would. It would. That's why it's good that we
Oh, okay. I
don't.
thought you said the opposite.
No, fuck no.
I was like,
I'm saying that
no.
would. Yeah, I'm saying that would increase in cell, and we don't want that. So that's actually good for men overall, even though it might be good. It might not be good for the. It might be like slightly detrimental to like one man, but
Well, I'm sorry. So what are you
still
saying is good
good
though?
for men overall, or good for society that men pick one partner and have kids rather than.
Okay, so you're saying monogamy in general because it would
Yes.
just yeah.
That
I
is more
mean,
safe.
but then I wonder, can we take it in the opposite direction and say, well, let's just have polygyny, right? Let's have cuctrons as a solution to the incel problem and a solution to the the reproductive access problem.
Yeah, we could do that, but it's going to be much. That is possible.
I'm saying this with like very tenuously, very
Yeah, me too. I'm not.
I
I don't want that
I
either.
feel
But
like I'm on a rickety bridge here. Okay, like
it's just a
but
thought experiment, not an actual suggestion.
I think yeah. I wonder about that. Is there a can we steel man the cucktron?
Okay,
Can
I
we
can
steel
actually
man the
address that.
cucktron? What do you think, chat? Can we steel man the cucktron?
But I can actually address that fairly simple. It's actually kind of yeah, it's basically
My
that.
answer is yes, but I am not optimistic. It would not be easy, and I don't believe it's something practically like within our grasp.
One
That's
thing
where I'm at with it, but I think it's there, maybe eventually.
I don't really want to spend too much time on that, but I want to
I don't
say
either.
that.
That's my last bit on it.
Yeah, I use my bet is just that if a guy can have kids with several women at the same time, and a woman can only have kids with one man at a time.
Right. So that would
It's going to be
that way we're
like,
agreeing with the feminist narrative. We're like, that's bullshit. That doesn't make sense. Like you shouldn't have. I mean, from a traditionalist perspective, it's obvious, right? Like why that like why that worked out the way it did, right? It's downstream from practical considerations, right? And it's not like this nefarious thing. It's not this hateful thing. It's just people kind of growing into societies and cultures and norms based on what's around them. And again, you can say those things are wrong. That's fine, right? We're not moral relativists. Like certainly not on this channel. That's kind of the theme.
But I am going to say that if a guy really wants to be a cock, right? Then I'm going to say, you do you, boy. If that makes you happy, then be you.
But that's the thing, though, is do we really know, and does he really know that that's what he wants, or is he just coping and making shit up in life?
Yeah, no, that's a valid concern.
And then the next question is, but how much responsibility do other people have, right, in helping like people save their own fucking souls? Death to Zionism, feminism, and the Thin Blue Line says they should be shamed, right? And it's like, yeah, I kind of agree in a sense, right? And it's sort of like when people have like the two sides of fat shaming. Like obviously there's a side of like bullying people for being fat and being ugly, and it's like it makes you feel bad and it's not good, and it's like don't do that, right? But then there's the other side of it where it's like, okay, but there is a point where it's like you kind of want to give people a wake-up call, right? And say like, if you thought about it, try this. You want me to help you?
The last thing I would say about that is just that if a guy decides to be a cock, then there's actually a net benefit for men overall because they have more access.
I suppose, yeah.
And that's the reason why I would say you do you, and then
example, like if you look at, for example, passport bros. Well, the big picture is that they're essentially like removing any access that the men in the countries that they're moving to would have, right? So they're not
Yeah.
really like solving the problem. Like they're not
They're just like
solution to
moving
the
it
problem.
around.
They're just feng shuiing the way the problem is moved around, right? Which I don't even think that's necessarily like unethical. But if it's from the perspective of like we care about men's rights and we want less misandry and we want things overall to improve for men, it's like it's not a solution. And in
Yeah,
fact,
that's even worse.
it's an alleviation for the individual that then is going to, I think, it's going to cause us to not get the solutions as fast, right? Because if the solutions hit us harder, the consequences are hitting us harder, then we're going to solve them. If we find ways to cope and to soothe ourselves, then we're just going to prolong things and have an even greater problem in the long run. And that's kind of what the passport bro solution is. But then, the cuck solution has the opposite. It's like,
men.
in theory, yeah, some of that could. But of course, there's the other concerns we had before, where it's like, does he really want that, or is he just telling himself that so that he can have something? Which, obviously, I think most people are suspecting.
Like I have one anecdote, and I don't want to stay longer. I just want to say that, and that is that it was like a documentary that where some guys actually did that, and you could tell very quickly that one guy, the initial cock, he was very much into being a cock, right? But one other guy, he was all in for circumstance, and that other guy, he ended up assaulting the kid of the third guy, right? So yeah, it's like guys that should never do that unless they're really into it. That's just about what I'm saying. But now I'm gonna move on.
Yeah, so let's get back to kind of so the point of this series with intersectionality, right, is, when feminists talk about intersectionality, they're talking about Black women, and that's basically it, right? But then they realize, oh, this is cool because we have Black issues and female issues, but then they intersect, right? And then like they don't do anything with this. They don't realize, oh, so do you think Black and maleness have an intersection? No, they really don't. They'll say they do, right? If you expose them, if you confront them with it, because they know the correct answer is to say yes, but then you ask them like, where's your Black male intersectionality? Like, you're not doing it, right? So really the concept and the bones of this giant robot of intersectionality, it's not just something that like the manosphere and anti-feminists should be using, or it's like it's not just something that we've neglected. It's that because feminists have made it look so awful, like we should be stealing it from them. We should be taking it from them and showing them how to use it, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And like we think the whole thing is stupid and retarded because we've only seen feminists using it. But when we use it, it's going to actually make sense. That's the goal of this, of the new Gaytriarchy streams. So this intersection, because before we talked about disability and its intersectionality with maleness, now
we specifically talked about disability in return to reproductive access for men.
That's true. We're in subcategories within subcategories, because like if you look at the overall approach of essentially taking two immutable characteristics, seeing how they intersect and don't intersect and how it inverts, and then looking at how that relates to even a third thing, right? Well, the structure is almost so nothing that it's essentially an approach to everything, right? There's so little structure in it that it's really endless trying to apply things in this way. So, but it was disability related issues. But yeah, there's more that we haven't even scratched the surface of on that vein. We've barely done anything related to like race and gender overlapping, because like I don't know, like there's a lot there. But the big picture is kind of obvious enough. But I don't know. But now we're doing some of the gay stuff. But it's not just that, because it's reproductive access that also is going to have overlap with straight men too.
And also depending on ethnicity, and I'm gonna get that soon. But like
so
there is
so I guess in this one we're talking more about a series of issues, and then it's going to hit multiple different combinations of intersections. So we got a little bit of an appetizer sampler in this topic.
Yeah, but because one thing I wanted to mention here, like before we get full into the intersection, we have a video and an article to reply to, right? But before, I wanted to make sure to underline some other issues we have when it comes to the law, right? There are so many countries, right, where it is perfectly legal if a woman wants to be voluntary a single mother, right? She can use a sperm donor, and then she can become a mother, right? And in many countries, she still gets child support from the state that mostly men pay for, I might add. Um, and yeah, and sometimes in some jurisdictions, she doesn't even need to pay for a sperm donor. The government pays for all that too, if because she wants to be a mother, right? But then, right, and that's legal in so many countries. Either it's legal or it's legal and subsidized, right? And never illegal, because how would you prevent a woman from getting pregnant if she finds a guy who's pregnant, right? You can't, right? But then it comes a guy, he has like very little options, right? Because the only options he has that in surrogacy, right? Which is a good option. That the issue is just that is not like that's usually quite expensive in most jurisdictions, and it's actually illegal in many jurisdictions. You have countries like France, I might add, and other countries in Europe, right, where if a guy enters surrogacy contracts, even if it's internationally in other countries, that's a criminal offense and he can go to jail for it. But a woman, if she wants to do the same thing, the government will pay for a sperm donor and pay for welfare until the kid turns 18. Right? And this is an extreme inequality that is imposed on you based on your sex by the law, right? And that is a form of sex-based oppression, and that is unavoidable. That's true, right? It's not unavoidable that it's the case that it should be the way, but that's how it is. So therefore, what we need to do is to make sure that surrogacy is legalized, and even if it's legal, and even if sperm donor is legal, that means that getting a surrogate or egg donor is more expensive than just getting an egg donor, right? And this from the beginning is that women doesn't have that need if they want to be a single parent, right? But if a guy wants to, then he does need to do that. And the same thing happens with if you're a homosexual relationship, then that also becomes a need. So therefore, if you have subsidies for one, then you should subsidize the other. They're literally subsidizing the one that needs less of it, while the other one is either banned or very expensive to access. And that and if there is a legal change, a legal distinction between if it's subsidies or if it's legal between either sex access to reproduction, then that is a form of sex-based oppression against men. And it becomes even worse because knowing that the majority of people who pay for these services that are subsidized are men because they're taxpayers, the majority of taxpayers, right? I basically said if you're going to have taxation at all and you have these things, and if you have subsidies for like armies and like, I don't know, basically all the other bullshit that women only get, and why shouldn't you have subsidies for these things as well? I'm just saying that I'm not saying that this system is ideal, but I just want the system to be consistent, right? And if we're gonna have these systems, at least men should get some of it too, and not just pay for it.
Yeah,
Because
and you know that I kind of have mixed feelings about that, because to me it's like I don't really give a shit about trying to perfect or fix something that's an artist project already, right? Because it's like we need to take the jump right off of having government solutions. Like that which is called government needs to be abolished, and it's exactly, it's an exact perfect parallel to abolishing slavery, right? It's like instead of full blown slavery where people are like physically enslaved, we need to also acknowledge that like enslaving people through sneaky little bullshit laws and threats and percentage of taxations and income taxes and things like that, it's not really a difference of kind. It really isn't. And that's why like the better term for anarchist is abolitionist. So and
right,
to
no,
me,
no,
if we were
I
to
see.
fix the current status quo and make it fair and make it do what it's pretending it's doing, right, then the consequences won't hit us as fast, right? The accelerationist thing. It's like I don't think we should deliberately try to make it worse, but it's like what really is the benefit? You'll have some benefit to people in the present and near future, but then the disadvantage is that does prolong when we're going to eventually abolish the entire government. And that's unfair to future generations. It's an injustice to even more people, right? So to me, it's like, well, it's good to look at the system and understand it and describe it. And I guess if you have like an opportunity for improving things that are like low effort, no brainer, obvious things, go for it, right? But at the end of the day, it's like all of that effort's going to be wasted eventually, right? Like
Right.
eventually,
No.
be
But I am just saying that, like, basically the only thing I'm really saying is if you have something women can do, then men should be able to do the same thing. And if women have its subsidies, then men should be able to, men should get it too. That's basically what I'm saying, because I want to be very broadly here, and I don't want to just go over people that agree with us politically, but also with people who disagree with us on men's rights related issues. Because I do think that's like the bigger, what is very important. So if you can like, at least in order to preserve property rights, if men have to pay for taxes, right? Then why should many of the benefits of those taxes go to things that only women can benefit from? Like, it should be both, because if you take your property and forcing you to pay for things, then you should be able to access the things that you are already paying for.
Well, and the problem, right, is that it's like if truly what you pay in taxes then translates into the services, you would just do it through the market, right? You wouldn't
Yeah,
have
we
this.
should, but now when you
The
have this,
entire point of having an intermediary thing is to steal money, right? And yeah, the stealing of the money is going to follow people's vague emotional impulses. If you're gynocentric, which is to say, if you're traditionalist or feminist, we're now talking about 99% of all humans, right? Yeah, they're going to do it in a way that steals from their less favored class men and gives it to women. And the reason you can just generically do this is because you argue that, well, it's going to improve society in general, and you live in society, so fuck you for complaining, right? So the argument is we can pay infinite money into schools because you're going to benefit from having an educated population, you know? Right? And like the argument, it's sort of valid, right? But there's a number of problems with it, namely like it's literally not true, right? Like the amount of what you pay and then how it relates to the services, there's no relationship there at all, right?
right?
But then even if there were, it's like if this were truly true, you would just get their money voluntarily. You're stealing from them and then telling them it's for their own good. But that's the issue, is like when people say something's good for society, they essentially mean it's good for women. And
Yeah.
what sets up is anytime you give women free cash and prizes, men are supposed to be grateful for that because, by this butterfly effect bullshit logic, eventually it's going to, help you out. Eventually it's going to come back, right? Rather than having the direct benefit of your money immediately, oh, well, some tiny percent of it is going to kind of float back to you however many months or years later, right? And you're supposed to be thankful for that and grateful for it.
Yeah, all of this is true, but my point is just that, like, when it comes to men's rights advocacy, we need to just focus on making the laws that are discriminatory not discriminate. Like, whatever underlying reasoning for that we think should actually be in place is also important, but it's like we need to like speak about one men's issues without having people understanding the libertarian framework too, because many people don't, but it's easy to make people understand this.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing is there are being progress, because recently, wait, fuck, it's coming in.
Okay.
Like, recently there were a legal change, right, in Michigan, where if a guy could not become a father if he wasn't married to a woman, right? But now if he wants to be have a surrogate mother to have kids, he can do that. It's legal now, right? So they are still, making we are making progress in some ways, right? So basically, I will say that every other political principle, is secondary to addressing men's rights issues, because I think that should be a priority. And even though it is a priority for us in general, or for you in general, it should be a priority when we are addressing the issue, or just the issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of like the reason you point out these double standards is so that a person who thinks of it and understands it logically, they're going to recognize the contradiction, even if they're not ready to emotionally agree with it or to yet change their view. It puts the seed in there and then causes them to rethink some of this like retarded nonsense, right? So to me, that's the goal. Is it's an advocacy perspective fundamentally.
Yeah. That's
I don't
what I'm
really
trying to
see
go
much
with.
of anything I'm doing with this channel like having like being translated into like a political action, but also I don't think that that's the best approach. You know, if people want to try that, go for it, right? But like I think that really it's a battle for people's souls, and the only way to do it is like one by one, right? The only way to do it is to start with the basics and to start with the theory and to start with the ideas and to really as much as possible expose as much shit that doesn't make sense in the overall zeitgeist and in the popular narratives so that, you know, one by one, so that people can start to understand that, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of really aiming for the absolute root. And I understand that's frustrating for people because it's so far from like, what do you actually do?
Exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I get that. Like,
there's no standard answer to that. What you're going to do is whatever you're going to do that day. And the opportunity to drop a red pill or to, you know, correct something or whatever, you know, maybe you're Miss Cleo, but you're probably not, right? You know, so you can't really put a pin in what it is you're actually supposed to do to support anti-feminism or advance men's rights, and your degree of loudness and risk is going to be, you know, something highly subjective and individually determined. So
right,
that's hard. I can't generically state what the plan would be, but I think exposing the hypocrisies is very important and very useful.
Yeah, of course. But my main point is that there's no reason why we wouldn't agree with making something that only women benefit from, to make men access that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the main point, is that obviously that should like change so that men can access it.
Well, and what's insane is a lot of these disparities, like you had mentioned earlier, it's not like
by the law.
Like
and that's where we
here's
need to change
something
the law.
where like some of it is just like women are given free cash and prizes and subsidized, and then men aren't, right? Like women have a positive, men do not have that positive. But then there's ones where it's like men are criminally prosecuted and thrown in jail, right, and have their lives ruined for shit that women get subsidized by the government, right? The government pays women and subsidizes literally criminal behavior, right? Behavior that's considered criminal when a man does it, but not criminal when a woman does it. When a woman does it, she's a victim and she gets free cash and prizes, right? And like that's like this, right? That's not this versus this inequality. It's this.
Yeah, but the main issue with going over all these separate issues is that we go over all issues, not just the most important ones.
Well, I mean, you have to go. The more you go over, the more you find, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So I mean, we have some items here. I feel like we should
grab one of these. Yes.
This video, though, I almost wanna save it because
we can save it and just go with the article and then.
How long is it? Well, it's a 15-minute video. Honestly, I kind of want to like actually, because you sent this. I wish you had sent this to me like yesterday.
Because we can save that one and just go with the article.
I want to save this one for another stream, but I'm going to post the link to the video in the chat. So anyone who's in the chat right now, just open this in a new tab and take a look at it. There's a lot of links in there. It's very contentious.
Isn't he like he's an absolute fucking
without
idiot?
even watching it, I can tell this is going to be a juicy video that I think will make a very fun response stream. But I want to read all the articles. I don't want to go in blind. I want to because I think that like it's less satisfying to watch a response where people are trying to figure out right what they're saying versus ones where it's like, okay, I know what their point is because I've seen the whole thing, right? And then they're kind of like able to be more useful in terms of like guiding the conversation, and obviously you're gonna get a more biased product that way. I don't know. I guess what do people think? Do people think is the like on the fly blind live reaction sometimes better? Because I think sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not. Now I'm kind of wondering when that's the case. I feel like the more lowbrow the thing is, the better, right? The better the like naked responses. What do we call naked? The blind, going in blind. That's what we call it, not naked, blind. Right? Like the blinder thing makes more sense for dumb things, for lowbrow things, for like people who respond to TikTok shit. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I nailed it. All right, I solved my own question. And this is something that highbrow, we'll call it. Because most people aren't going onto YouTube to look for shit that has how many citations? Wow, she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's like 10 citations here. Got Julie Bindel in there. Classic. But yeah, let's see. The bad thing about surrogacy is that it involves a woman. That's funny. Right. So that's the thing too, is I wonder the degree to which artificial uteri like make surrogacy no longer relevant. There's certainly going to be a long stretch of time where they're coexisting. And there's probably like it's complex enough, right, that there's going to be advantages and disadvantages. I don't know, in perpetuity, are we just going to have natural, surrogate, and artificial as the options? Because that's the funny thing too, is like every single like big change, right, that's happened, people act like it's totally impossible to conceive of. And I mean, now it's just normalized, right? Like you would never like shit on a family because their children are adopted, right? Like that's very normalized. Like and like it's like you probably met all kinds of people who are adopted and had no idea, right? You probably encountered all kinds of people who were gay, even probably passing transsexuals, right? And like just totally under the radar. It's not really making a difference, right? And I feel like artificial uteri and surrogacy, it's kind of just one of those things where it's like, yeah, people are born in different ways. Or I guess C-sections are a great comparison, right? You could totally conceive of people being like, no, that's totally unnatural. Ew, look at how grotesque and insane and extreme that is. Like, that is so unnatural. We shouldn't be normalizing C-sections. Just let the mother die, right? And, when it's put to the brass tacks, when it's put to life and death, we're like, no, we're choosing this very violent, ugly option because it is better. And sometimes that's life, right? It's like, if you look at the degree to which we've normalized and accepted that children are born with, home birth or in a hospital, or it's a water birth, or it's a C-section, right? Sometimes it's early, sometimes it's a little later, right? Like if you just look at all of the diversity of it already, that's already just downstream from reality. There's really not a difference of kind happening here. It's just a better understanding of the natural world allows us to produce better technology so that we can continue to interact with reality in more and more harmonious, eudaimonic ways, right? And yeah, I really see it as like, it's a black and white thing. You're either in favor of artificial uteri or you're a fucking faith healer, right? Those are the only two positions. You're either a faith healer or you're like, yeah, artificial uteri seems fucking legit. I'm all for AI, right? All this AI scaremongering. You people look fucking retarded. You look stupid. And you're going to get mocked relentlessly, okay? All of the AI fear-mongering, you're a boomer, okay? That's this channel's stance. We're pro-China, we're pro-AI. Social credit, that's literally every single rewards card point system, right? The social credit is a form.
Why did he froze? Oh, for fuck's sake.
Using connection.
Yeah, I did for a while. You froze. But
I
like,
was gonna say something, but
have you
anyway.
started the article yet?
No, Howard Schoonover's in the comments. He says artificial wombs are needed for generational star travel, frozen embryos incubated on arrival at the new system.
Okay.
Oh
cool.
yeah, that's a good point too, right? Is it's like if you had a future where humans are doing fucking space travel and have colonized other planets and then they're going over human history, like the concept of these earthbound fucking people not developing that technology because they got the ick over artificial wombs, they'd be like, those people are fucking retarded, right? The same way that we look at a faith healer and it's like, yeah, they're just a bunch of irresponsible retards.
The same way we look at people who burned people at the stake for being witches.
Exactly, right? And like it just
And
all
modern
belongs
people
in
are
that
fucking.
category.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
And like
Almost like evolution happens all the time. You can imagine.
Right. And like the problem isn't the correct identification of these things in the past that were evil and wrong. It's just that we're not including enough things in the present that also fall into that category. And it's all of the feminists, and it is every form of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All three of them belong in there. What else? Well, every form of archy, every form of archism, right? The entire political spectrum belongs in there too. And like these are things that are just gonna be obvious to people. I'd say even like 100 years from now, like this shit's going kaput because it's so stupid. Like there's nothing to it. There's no logical consistency at all, and literally it's running on the fact that people are just they have IQs below 100 and they're willfully ignorant.
Yeah.
But insofar as that gets combated, like it's fucked. It's entirely dependent on people being stupid and lazy and ignorant.
Precisely. Like what I'm just saying is that what I'm trying to say is that future technology is something that should happen, but it's important to fix what needs to be fixed now, and that is to fix that the guys are being able to have families, right, and have children, because otherwise they won't really have stake in the future.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? So that's a really compelling argument. Because all the time, like it's a trap that a lot of I guess pseudo MRAs.
Oh, in the future you're gonna be right, yeah, but you need to. But if the laws are so sexist now that you can't have children and you can't have relationships, then your descendants won't exist in the future. So you kind of have to fix a lot of things now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the reason why we are going to go over the article soon.
All of the comment. Oh, I see. That's just the feature to highlight. Sorry, I was like, are all of the comments hidden by default? I was like, what the fuck is StreamYard doing? Okay, I just wanted to highlight this comment here. AI can be used for good, but it'll be used for mostly porn and by the surveillance state. I agree. But also, you could just replace that with the internet, and it's still true. The internet can be used for good, but it'll be used mostly for porn and by the surveillance state.
Yeah, a hammer can be used to build a house, but it can also be used as a weapon. But I think we should.
My AI data set centering my ability to create waifus read. Yes. That's the thing too, right? Like we're gonna be so beyond just talking about AI. It's gonna be talking about who like skilled prompters. There's gonna be people who get 4-year degrees in how to be prompters, right? And it's gonna be a professional, like certified trade. Detection of improper use of AI. It's going to get dunked on so hardcore, right? That it's going to radically change things. But like, there's absolutely always going to be a human element because at the end of the day, all this shit did come from humans. You can't avoid that. But it's like the painters keep fucking crying over photographs, right?
Yeah, no, that's not true.
Looks
But
like they got over it. Looks like they got over it kind of immediately because it's not the same. And like that's the problem too. Is just most artists, they're just not very creative, and they just want to be an artist because they like the idea of being an artist, but they ain't got the chops, and they're not that creative, and they're not producing art that's really valuable, right? So that's
Well-
why they're threatened by AI. It's a litmus test for if an artist is a real artist or not. If they're concerned about AI, they're not a real artist. They don't have a soul. They're getting replaced by something that's soulless. That's how you know. Real
makes
art
sense,
are
but
like AI is awesome. This is going to make my art better, or it's not going to affect me at all.
But I think we should first go to the article and then go.
Yeah, sorry,
down
we got on a tangent. I opened the tangent box. AI was weaponized. They weaponized it in Gaza. Oh yeah, that's right. Isn't Israel taking over the capital of Gaza right now? I saw a headline of that yesterday.
We're going on another tangent.
Right. What do you mean? Gaza? How could Gaza be a tangent?
No, because no, it can be because now we
The
are.
Middle East is a tangent?
Yes, now it's a tangent. Now it's definitely tangent, but now we're talking about even more. We should move on.
All right, we're going to this article, this Guardian article. Posted
It's absolute dumpster fire garbage.
All
It's the worst
surrogacy is exploitation. The world should follow Sweden's ban. Fucking A, man.
Should you like? Oh, but
Sweden is like the poster child of like an approach to empathy and compassion that's so surface level, right? That it's just cowardice and causes a bunch of problems. Like there's something about, I feel like, Scandinavians, because I have Scandinavian genes, right? So I see it like in my like extended family that like there is this common denominator negative trait of Scandinavians that like they'll do the surface level. They'll go for that surface level, like really nice looking compassion, and ignore the downstream consequences. And it's cowardice, is what it is. It's laziness and cowardice.
That is actually the most perfect description of Sweden and Scandinavia broadly that one could ever make ever. It is 100% accurate. There is nothing wrong about it. Entirely, fully, and wholly correct. Flawless. Perfect.
Your endorsement of that is making me uncomfortable because I'm kind of comfortable saying with that as like, oh, it's like a general thing, right? Like if it's 50% true of most people, it's maybe 60 to 65% true of them. It's a tendency. And you're like, that is their soul. You nailed it. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Almost like race is real.
But they'll be perfectly pleasant about it. So who gives a fuck, right? It's the same reason we can bully white people with impunity.
Yeah, that's because we're all white. It's going to be relevant after.
No, it's because whites are pussies.
That is correct, but and we can say that without being racist. But I want to say
while being racist, and it doesn't matter. That's how cucked white people are.
Well, that's true. Oh God, I hate it. But yeah,
I hate it.
I want to say something interesting about the article is that she said that the world should follow Sweden's ban, and that actually the current government of Sweden is actually looking to legalize it. So, because this article is pretty old, it's 9 years old, and now, like the government was elected wants to make it.
There's a yellow, like warning label on it. Pops out. Well done, The Guardian. I like that's a nice feature.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing is like it's a thing where they hide the fucking year. I mean, here we got it right here, 2016, right? But like a lot of articles, they deliberately obfuscate that, and then they'll like repost it, and then it's like in the fucking fine print under a double asterisk that they posted it in like 2006.
Do you mind if I use?
You look like a dipshit for like freaking out over some story, and it's like
Yeah, but I use one.
Buddy.
May I just read the first paragraph and I can reply to what it is? It basically said, no country allows the sale of human beings. Yes, some countries do. And it said, so why surrogacy is illegal? Because you're not selling human beings. Even if it's altruistic, there's still a price to pay. There is a price to pay with doing anything with being. It's called being alive. Learn it. So that's the most idiotic, retarded, dumbass femoid statement I've ever heard. And it's a sexist term. Look, if you are a woman that wants to have some rights meant reserved for women and refuse to extend it to men, you are sexist. You can't say that I'm being sexist against women like that, because even if you are, then we're just playing by the same game. So it's not really, yeah. Do you want to read it, or should I read more of
Well,
it?
yeah. So let's just look at it. So I don't think we have to read it word for word, right? They're saying, okay, so surrogacy has become an industry. It's a commercial industry, and the problems are scandals, exploitation, and abuse. They give a couple of examples. They say there's the baby M case. I haven't heard of this case, but
I have, but I don't remember it
they
because
said the mother changed her mind, but was forced to give up the baby anyway, right?
Here's the descriptive. It says her baby.
About that, like that circumstance.
Okay, I can tell something about this. Listen here, right? If a woman is a surrogate, most of the time, right, depending on jurisdiction, in some jurisdictions, she can still keep the baby after, right, if she wants to, right? Even if it's not biologically hers, right? And then they would split it 50-50 like their divorce couple, right? And I want to say that in the baby M case, the only reason why the surrogate mother, who wasn't biologically related to the child, who signed a contract that she was going to, right, do this, right, for another, for somebody else, right? She's agreed to it like legally before that, and she already had kids, right? And then the only reason why she didn't get to keep it and they went to the prospective parents, or right, was only because the judge thought that it would be better off with the prospective parents and not with the surrogate mother. That's the only reason, right?
No, wait a minute. The only reason that she was forced to stick to her contract was it was interest of the child, Trump.
Yes. She is ignoring that in the article, but that's the case. Because
I'm trying to decide.
I know about this.
About that in theory, because obviously we know in practice, interest of the child is, it's an Orwellian phrase. What they actually mean is whatever's best for the mother or for the woman.
In this time, it wasn't.
But in this case, it wasn't. Okay, so yeah,
I think that it wasn't a perspective. I don't know if the perspective of parents. I don't know if why they have to use a surrogate, right? But it wasn't because they had options, right? It was like the only way they could have biological children. But I don't know.
It sounds like it's just because the woman wanted to have kids but didn't want to go through the pregnancy, right? So this is a case of like an affluent woman, like, exercising a privilege based on like her wealth. And because if you think about it, like if you're a super like that'll eventually kind of be part of it. Is it'll be a classist thing? Is, oh, you had a natural, oh, you birthed them yourself, right? And it'll be like the middle class and lower class people being like, oh, well, natural birth is better and we do it this way and like you're fake and etc. Like that'll be kind of the nasty element of it, right?
Well, I have a perfect, but I don't know. I don't know if there was even a prospective mother, right? But I do know that it was a prospective father, and I do know that whatever like family constellation he was in was considered to be better for the child than the surrogate, who had to stick to her contract. And here's the deal, right? If surrogacy is legal in developed nation, that means you can only be a surrogate if you have had a child, given birth to a child before, because otherwise it's not considered that you are, that you need to have gone through that in order to consent to being a surrogate in many jurisdictions, right? Which, I guess, okay, fine, that's the case, but that's a safety net to protect the woman, like. And if you still can't follow your contract after it, then like. Huh? What's wrong? Like, it's not a problem. It's even common.
You said in some jurisdictions, right? Like there are certain like buffers or whatever. But like when you look at right, if you remove government, right? It's like, well, this would all be done through contracts, right?
Exactly, and then it would work well.
And then it's like this is such an obvious risk to surrogacy, right? That the surrogate mother will get cold feet and want to keep the baby, right? And like obviously nobody wants it to play out that way. Nobody involved, right? So there's already a natural interest in both parties to accommodate for that happening and to set standards for that happening. Now, the degree to which you make that accommodation in the contract favor the surrogate woman, well, her surrogacy then is going to be less valuable than someone who's willing to say, I absolutely will not renege on it, right?
Yeah, you would fix it. That would be the perfect solution.
And then women who are willing to take that risk would then be rewarded for taking that risk, right? By getting more money for doing the surrogacy. Women who maybe want the potential choice and option of, 8 or 9 months in deciding to negate the whole thing. Well, the payoff, if you go through it, shouldn't be as much, right? Because the service you provided as a surrogate was less valuable than it would have been, right? And this is the way every single job works, every single service works. If people are willing to take more risks, right? If people are willing to work harder, essentially, if they're willing to provide a better service, then they should be compensated for that. And allowing those to play out allows people to select what their comfort level is. Whereas, like, if it's like, oh, well, now it's going to depend on what jurisdiction it is, it's going to depend on international laws, it's going to depend on all this bullshit. If there's anything that's inhibiting people's abilities to make contracts that are going to make the most sense for all parties involved, it is the government, and it is the government's
Yes, of
fight.
course. No, of course. No, that is true.
This goes directly into the next thing she says. She's like, oh, and then what about that one woman who died from her pregnancy, right? That's an obvious risk to surrogacy because it's a risk to pregnancy, right? It's going to be non-unique to surrogacy.
Yeah, like also when it comes to doing a job, most jobs that are high risk and death are mainly men doing it, right?
That's the thing, right?
So from one job that women can only do, and that's the risk. Oh no, you can't do it.
The workplace death gap. We're closing the workplace death gap.
Like, don't they want equality? Like, what the fuck? And also, like, nobody's forcing her and say, oh, she might not want a job. Yeah, you have a body that needs food, that means you need to eat, needs to do a job. If a woman has the privilege of doing this extra job that men don't have, by the way, and get paid for it, that's a privilege. That's why she can get out of where she is. It's a good thing that she can do this for her.
This would be a great premise for a sci-fi movie, though, where it's a male surrogate because you have artificial uteri. So he's like overseeing and caring for like a garden of artificial uteri, like on a space colony, or probably no, underwater, actually, underwater.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
That sounds like an awesome. That should be a Miyazaki movie. That should be a Miyazaki movie.
But also, like, being pregnant isn't that dangerous. We are a placental species. Like, for fuck's sake, we live in the 21st century. Being pregnant isn't like, oh no, you can die. I'm like, that's not a big risk with being pregnant. Like, the vast majority of women, especially in the developed world, don't die for getting pregnant. Like, that's
right.
another issue. What the fuck?
Yeah, like if you look at that risk and then compare it to any job where people get injured or die, yeah, no, you're not, on that tier list of dangerous jobs that'll kill you. Surrogacy might be, if we're just looking at jobs that women might take, right? Oh yeah, it's S tier on that scale. But if we're looking at jobs for like humans, it's down to what, E? We use E because we're like, because it's weeb shit.
And also, like, if you basically, I want to go with some other point where you basically said that that there have been a commodification of human life. Click, choose race. Click, choose race, and eye color, pay, then have your child live it. And I'm like saying that, what the fuck is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that at all. What's wrong with it? Seriously, she doesn't say. She just say, oh, it is wrong because it makes me feel bad. Okay, so, but I think it feels good, so therefore it should be legal, right? Whose feelings matters now? Should only her feelings matter? Her subjective opinions matter? But the government that she's living under now, by the way, that was democratically elected by the majority of people in Sweden, by the way, that prime minister that they have in the country now said that he wants to make surrogacy legal, right? So the majority of people don't share her feelings about this, right? So you can whine over at the dog on how much you want a decade ago, but it doesn't fucking last. Right.
Right.
And here goes over thing. Right?
Let's bite off a little bit more of the content of this article. I think we've savaged the first two paragraphs well enough. Let's see. Well, because we went over the risk of death, and they said, or the intended parents who refuse to accept a disabled child and try to get their surrogate to abort.
Can I say what this
is another thing, right? You would
that's
have
already
standards for abortion, I guess, within surrogacy. And that's the thing too, right? If you're pro-life and you are against abortion, then you're going to have pretty strong arguments against surrogacy because it involves a lot of abortion.
No, it doesn't.
I'm sorry, IVF. IVF is what involves a lot of abortion.
Yeah, IVF. Not surrogacy. Here's basically what happens, right? If you are
sorry, I should clarify though. It's technically not an abortion because we're talking about killing, like, conceived things, but like, abortion refers to the termination of a pregnancy inside a uterus, right? And if they have to reach that state, but this is kind of just semantic, right? But like, if you have the idea that like, at conception, it's human life and therefore worthy of human care and concern.
Right, but that's not what's actually happening. I want to clarify something when it comes to surrogacy, right? You cannot order a surrogate to have an abortion, right? And here's the deal, right? If you don't accept the child that you ordered through surrogacy, right? That means that the surrogate, she gets to keep it, right? And then she's entitled to child support, right? So if you want to be an asshole and not take the kid that you wanted to make, then you get treated like any other guy who walked out of a kid because he was born disabled, right? It's not a problem. She gets to keep the kid and she gets child support from whoever said, no, I don't want disabled kid. And I don't give a shit about that asshole, right? But let's take up, they use one asshole to explain why other men shouldn't have rights, which is bullshit. And also that asshole also have to pay child support if that's the case, right? So where's the problem exactly? She's explaining something and being a problem, leaving out the solution that government already have in place, right, to prevent that problem from happening. So,
well, wait a minute. Let's plug this into that situation, right? So, she's a surrogate. There's problems in the pregnancy. The child's going to be disabled. The surrogate parents don't want the disabled child, right?
Yeah.
So
I would want a disabled child, by the way, and I want to use this. So they're saying
that
but
like
some guys might be assholes, other guys should have rights.
Yeah, but this is an undeniably problematic situation. I mean, it's a little bit non-unique because you have selective abortions based on these things, right? Like, there are people who will offer an abortion if they know that their child has a severe condition like that, right? And that's a choice a lot of people make. And like, there's sort of I feel like there's a point where it's like, hey, like, this child's like not going to be viable. Like, these are really, really serious problems. And, abortion then kind of has an air of compassion to it, right? But then the other side of it is it's like, it's eugenic as hell. And it's a little bit like inhumane and closed-minded because it's like, you're not even giving people a chance to like exist and be themselves. And like, like a lot of us do exist and probably wouldn't, right? If these standards were so much more high, so that it's like, what grounds do we have for like saying it's permissible, right? It's a tricky issue. And I feel like it actually is something that's like on a scale where if you were asking every individual person, they'd have like different points of being like, okay, yeah, no, I've given up hope at this point, right? Because it's like, oh, the baby's not going to be able to walk. A lot of people are like, well, that's not a reason to abort.
No, it's not. Like, walking is overrated. Like, you can
but here's the thing,
have a very good life even if you can't walk. Like,
yeah, but it's tricky though, because if you are like very, very pro-abortion, well, you don't see that like a fetal human has any real human right besides, the right to life if the parent wants to raise it, or the right to a quick and painless end to their existence.
But
they shouldn't be killed in like a brutal, suffering, torturous way. Although with abortion, I don't, that's obviously not always the case. Often I think abortions are incredibly Like that a lot of fetuses do suffer quite a lot, right, depending on the method.
But that's the reason why late-term abortion is illegal in most of the world. So
Right.
here's the
Just like
problem.
to me, that's where even if like for me, like I guess I'm sort of nominally pro-choice, but I'm not that passionate or extreme about it. And I think that there should be a lot of like caution on a social and cultural level toward that sort of a thing. Like an abortion pride movement is just toxic and horrible to me.
That's
But
just,
I
I think
understand. I understand the logic behind it, right? I understand what they're kind of going for. I can steelman it, right? But it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like it's
yeah, but the thing I wanted to say is that like that's like saying that being disabled means that your life is gonna be worse. Like if someone wanna go over the reasons why things might be worse if you have a disability, you can watch the previous live streams that we have made about intersectionality, right? But by grand scheme of things, being disabled don't fucking destroy your life. I can tell you that it sucks a lot of the time when you're disabled, right? But to be quite honest, it's actually not the worst thing that can happen to you. It really isn't. Like they say, "Oh no, your life's gonna be terrible because you're disabled." No, that's not true. Like, and the more people know about this, the less of these things would occur. And also, you can, if you are married to a woman or if you have a girlfriend, you can't force her to have an abortion, right? And you cannot do it to a surrogate either, right? So it's no difference. A man cannot force a woman to have an abortion, and he shouldn't be able to do that. Um, but like, so that's not something that you can force her to do. If you want to be an asshole and walk out of a pregnant wife because her kid's disabled, that's the same problem. He's still going to get about all her child support, and the same thing if he walks out on this pregnant woman, if she want to keep the baby too, right? If he doesn't want it anymore, right?
yeah, that's a good point,
There's
right?
no
They're just
difference between
problems
if
that
you
are
are
already
using surrogate or
intrinsically
not.
part of pregnancy, and then just noticing that, oh, when we had allowed for more pregnancy, those same problems with pregnancy keep happening. It's like, yeah, it's non-unique. That's a good point, you know?
And I would also like to point out that so-called baby factories in Asia only allow
Yeah, no, this
so-called
is just the sweatshop argument. If you think sweatshops are bad, you're retarded.
yeah, but
I'm not gonna
I don't
explain it
I
further
don't.
than
But
that. I've explained it on this
I want
channel.
to I just want to underline that many of these like third world countries where you can have surrogacy, then you need to be a married straight couple to do that. So like, what if they say that that's a reason why we shouldn't having in the Western world doesn't make any sense. But what they're actually saying is that we shouldn't have it here. Then they're basically saying only straight couple gets you surrogacy. That's what they're saying. They should just honestly say that, because
Well,
that is
wait,
what they're
why
saying.
what does this relate to the baby factories though?
Yeah, the supposed baby factories, which is surrogacy industries in other countries that are third world countries. A good way of fixing that supposed problem is to make it legal in your country.
Well, here's the
But
thing,
no,
though. I would argue that for the countries that do have these quote unquote baby factories, it's bad for them, right? Because the reason that they're doing that is because all of their alternatives are worse, right? And it's the exact same logic as a sweatshop, right? It's why, like, you don't boycott things that are produced in sweatshops because those things are helping them advance economically. And all of these industrialized countries did go through phases of industrializing themselves through working in conditions that we would consider like horrific, right? But like the reason we're able to produce value and have these industries and do things in ways that are like sedentary and comfortable and air conditioned is because we went through that whole stage of developing our countries that way, right? So these countries are less developed. This is allowing them to get some of that capital, right? So that things will actually equalize and then their countries will be industrialized and then will develop more luxury industries that then allow people to diversify and to go into more comfortable, more modern, safer, more comfortable jobs. But like that doesn't, it has to be built, right? It has to be
right?
built.
No, I totally get that.
So my argument, right, is that like if we just, like if all the industrialized countries, essentially deregulate so that now, people aren't trying to get cheaper surrogates from other countries and everything like that because we've increased the supply now so that things are a little bit more equal. That they're benefiting economically, from being able to take advantage of like the fact that industrialized countries essentially see this work as beneath them, right? And it's like I kind of feel like that's okay, right? Like if these countries are really that much poorer, it doesn't bother me the idea that on a global capitalist level, more wealth is going to those poorer countries because they're willing to do work that there is a demand for, that all these more affluent countries feel like is beneath them, right?
Yeah, but not only this, like even her supposed you're right about that, so I have nothing to add.
But I will say they're not entitled to having captured that industry, right? Like if you have global deregulation that then, you know, says, oh, it's not going to be as profitable now. Like you're going to have to kind of diversify a little bit. I guess you're going to be a little bit poorer. Like that's again structural violence. It's a consequence of reality and mutually voluntary exchanges and relationships changing over time, which as humans we just have a natural responsibility to understand and adapt to. Or at the very least, we don't really have a right to complain about it if we're not doing due diligence and understanding it.
Yes. I don't disagree with any of that, but I want to just add that her supposed that she had a problem with it, that would just be fixed if you have it legal in your own country. So she's against the solution that would make most sense to her the problem that she's like explaining. I mean, she's just dumb. Like at this one, but we knew that. We knew that.
Mike, this is just incredible. This sentence right here. So they're talking about so Sweden, essentially they banned surrogacy completely.
But now they want to reverse it.
Banning all surrogacy, whether it's commercial or altruistic, and taking steps to prevent citizens from going to clinics abroad. So it's a ban within their own country, and then also extra measures to make sure people don't try to use international law to get a loophole, right?
Like
so,
just like
this is right here. This is a groundbreaking decision, a true step forward for the women's movement. And I'm going to say this is a 100% perfect fucking parallel, right? To like you have these women who now have an opportunity, these poor women, right, in poorer countries,
and rich women
have an opportunity, right? And they're taking away that opportunity. They're attacking that opportunity in order to privilege the sensibilities of, these industrialized, privileged, westernized women, right? And it's to suit their classist, morally superior, aristocratic tendencies, which to them that's their baseline, right? Like so when they think they're being fair and neutral and equal, they're acting like a fucking aristocrat and they're being a cunt, right? That's the baseline. And then women unlearn that insofar as they become anti-feminist. So
yeah.
Right. So that's the lay of the land, right? So it's literally, I totally agree with this. It is a step forward for the women's movement because the women's movement is all about just whatever is convenient to the emotional sensibilities of privileged aristocratic white women. And this is literally like watch this. I'm a womanist now. This is my black feminism. I'm like, look at this. This is some racist bullshit. Because they don't see these Asian women as like real like people one-to-one with the privileged white Swedish women, right? The Swedish woman is like a real person, and then all the Asian women are kind of just like a coop of chickens, right? They don't see them. They see them as like a mass unit, a liquid unit of just thing, because these are just the third world poor brown countries, so fuck them, right? That's very much how I see this. And yes, any step forward for the women's movement, that's essentially what it reduces to. And that's why you had black feminism. That's why you had womanism. But of course, they missed the big picture of the racism. And they truly did not understand the racism. It's because they're all fucking socialists. So it's...
Yeah, no, I get it. But like, it's also that most people who go to overseas to do surrogacy, they don't go to Asia because they go to fucking America. And there, it's not working class women doing that. It's usually like middle class women doing this. Like,
Right. It's
also,
going to be a
how
woman who doesn't want to be pregnant, probably because she has some kind of career. And it's probably more likely going to be a woman who is single, right? Rather than, like, it'd be kind of weird for a woman who's married with kids, or like she's married and they don't have kids or whatever, but like she's fertile and viable, and like, you know what I mean? Like it's obviously going to select for like the career woman, right? The feminist empowered career woman who's living her own life and essentially doing the male gender role, right, as a single free person. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's interesting though. I didn't realize that, like, because my assumption is, well, if they're gonna go abroad, they're obviously gonna go to the baby factory, right? Like the baby factory is the baby factory for a reason. It's got to have the most demand. If it's making the most supply, it has the most demand, right? That's where most of the market's gonna go. But you're suggesting that actually America is the supplier.
Yeah, I think that because most people who need this aren't straight couples, right? That's the reason why they can't go to the third world countries. We can only
Well, I
go
don't
to
know
like.
about that. I don't know. Like, who
No, I
are
know
there?
about that. It's almost
Are
impossible.
there more infertile, like the number of like women who are like infertile, or couples who for whatever reason can't conceive, or it's like just infinitely like really statistically difficult, right? Like they could in theory, but it's such a low percent chance that, right? Versus like people are just gay. Um,
Yeah.
are there more gays? I mean, what's the likelihood of being infertile? If it was close to like 10%, that wouldn't, like, I wouldn't find that surprising, but I might just be way fucking off. Maybe infertility is way rarer than I think it is.
No, but my point is that gay couples are restricted to like Western developed countries, and in this instance, that also includes South Africa, while straight couples can have their pick of the litter.
Wait, I'm sorry. Oh, so okay, so you're saying within an industrialized country, right? You have a gay parents versus the straight couple, and the straight couple has access to more ways to get surrogates, whereas the gays don't. So where
Yeah.
is that go?
No, that is because many countries, especially third world countries, then you can only use a surrogate if you are a married heterosexual couple.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's explicitly that, and you're saying it's most third world countries make that the standard.
Yeah, like that is the case in like almost every country in Asia, and it's the case in Latin America. It's not the case in South Africa. Actually, in South Africa, it's the opposite. In South Africa, you can only hire a surrogate in South Africa if you are a single individual who can't be pregnant, if you're a guy or infertile woman, or if you are a couple who can't have a biological child together, which none of you can get pregnant, right? But if you are a person who don't have any gametes, right, you don't have sperm or egg, and neither does your partner, you can't use a surrogate because you need to have gametes in order to use surrogate. You are allowed to use a surrogate if it can be your biological child. Otherwise, they don't think you need to do it because you cannot don't. Um, so
Yeah, I mean, I think those
which
are
is
those are
fair. I
all
think
kind
that's
of
completely
well,
fair
because
to be
that makes
honest.
sense, right? Like if you don't have gametes for the surrogacy, then why wouldn't you just adopt?
Yeah, you can only use surrogate in South Africa if you have gametes, right? And if you or your partner cannot get pregnant, um, um, and you need to be domiciled in South Africa too, right? So and that's solution. That's a solution, right? That's a solution, right? They have solved this, right? So yeah, it's like what's the and then these like sexist bitches in the European Union, like, oh, we need to call member states to ban it because we care about human rights. Human rights? If it's you know what? It's part of the so-called human rights. You know what it says there? It says laws should apply to citizens without distinctions based on sex. Having a country where surrogacy is illegal, then you have discrimination based on sex. It is of contradicting the Universal
Yeah,
Declaration of Rights. So she's just this is about a bullshit. They're like, oh, we care about human rights. We used against the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and going to make sure that no country abides by it. So this just what? You're talking shit.
so
This
I'll
is
say this:
propaganda.
like your argument is correct in the hypocrisy, in that like it's true for literally anyone who believes that like natural inequalities should be corrected in some way, right? because that's how you see that as like, okay, clearly applying this law in this way is going to disadvantage people based on like their biology, right? But you could point to it and just say, well, but look at it, look at the text, it's totally neutral, right? But like, it's tricky, right? Because it goes back
It's
to the
not
thing I
because it's
mentioned earlier.
discriminate
It's
based
like
on
how
sex.
much of this is just downstream from nature, and if it's downstream from nature, it's like, well, we can't call that like an inequality in the same way as something that's unfairly imposed through artificial means, right? The latter is obviously like not ethically permissible ever. The former is like, this is part of reality. And like, yeah, you want to adapt to it, and like insofar as you have problems, you want to fix those and correct those and make things as fair as possible, but very different hats, you know, like I don't see the fact that women are able to conceive children and men aren't. Like, to me, that doesn't justify like aggressively like giving men some sort of a compensation or whatever, right?
Oh no,
Like
that's
like
not what I'm saying. I think you're misunderstanding what I'm
right.
trying to say.
Well, but you're
I'm
saying that a ban overall, technically a
would
ban is gender neutral, right? A ban is
yeah,
technically,
I know it is gender neutral, but it's not sex neutral.
but well, but the law itself is sex neutral.
No, but
It's,
here's the deal, right?
yeah.
That's actually some people need to know what actually sex-based discrimination
Like
is.
the consequences aren't.
Yeah, but can I just explain this? It's actually quite
Yeah.
simple. It is that because we know the sexes are different, have different biological uh, uh, breeding capabilities, right? That's what the sexes are. That means that if you have a law that specifically hinders the breeding capability of one sex, right? Even if that's not mentioned anywhere, even if they don't say in the law, mention man or male in the law, woman or female in the law, it's still discriminate based on sex because it's a policy that restricts what you can do with your life because of your sex. So therefore,
Okay. Right. No,
that's why it's sex-based
I agree.
discrimination.
Right. Because banning something is a positive artificial action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And therefore, when you do act in those ways, you do have a responsibility for anticipating the consequences. And if it is having clear disproportionate effects on people based on their immutable characteristics, then yeah, I think the accusation sticks. So yeah, I agree. Surrogacy ban is definitely sexist, and it's homophobic.
Yeah.
Well, it's more, well, you know, it's homophobic against lesbians too. It's all around homophobic, but particularly homophobic toward males, obviously.
That's the intersection we're coming to after the article.
Yeah. But it's kind of interesting, right? Because there's a level of intersection where we're talking about gays in general. So it's going to be gay men, bisexual men, and lesbians all in one group. And yes, it hits there at that intersection. But then it actually gets further extreme if you're a male within that category. Yes. And then even further extreme if you're a non-bisexual male within that category.
Yes.
So the intersection is kind of triangle shaped. And it's like you're all within one category for the baseline, but then there's a bunch of bonus damage if you're in particular.
It's magnifying. I think we should dwell into that after. I think we should develop more deeply into that after the article. You can end the article whenever you feel like it, so we have time to go in.
Yeah, let's see what else is in here, right? So
it's a side quote from Julie fucking Bindel.
Wait, in this one?
Yeah, in the side. No, right on the side, next to it. No,
where?
Next to it, scroll down. It says to the side, like it's
oh,
there.
right here on the left. Yeah, commercial surrogacy is a rigged market in wombs for rent. Yeah, Julie Bindel, this rad femme turf shit is endlessly amusing and pathetic.
Like I think Bindel, you know what I really love about this. I really love they say, oh, we're gonna ban you to be like, why? Oh, because you don't like trans people. Whoa, wait. You said that the main reason you don't like her because she's bigotry, and the first thing you think about is trans people? Okay, fuck you, and fuck her, and fuck anyone in this discussion. They can all go fucking die in a horse, right? I don't give a fuck. They're terrible people if they actually think that.
Right. I mean, to me, it's the exact same argument as like when Marxists say that work is exploitative. Like they they pretend that they think industrialization caused an alienation in the workforce. No, these fucking retards are alienated from their work no matter what level of technology they have. The
even when
mindset
they
is a
develop these
shitty
technologies,
worker
they're
who
still
has a
gonna play
bad
the same
time working
shit.
no matter what they do, right? And like that's why, of course, commercial surrogacy, okay, that's a service you provide. Well, of course, they're going to interpret it in the worst way possible because they only view things from one side. And it's like any sort of business negotiation has two sides, and any negotiation is very three-dimensional and very complex, right? But if you look at it from just one side, as like an advocacy kind of a view, you're going to always side with the customer to the extreme, right? And that's why it's like minimum wage. Well, why don't we just make the minimum wage $1 million, bajillion, $1 per hour? The person who's pro minimum wage literally has no argument against that. Like, because if they understood why you can't do that, then they'd understand why you can't have minimum wage, period. Right? And basically, they're just retarded. It's a low IQ position to favor minimum wage, just like it's a low IQ position to view every single economic arrangement as exploitative, because you can do that if you're only going to look at one side and then say, well, look, why couldn't she have double the money? Why couldn't she have triple? Oh, look, this one died. How come it's not 0 deaths, right? It's like, yeah, because you're not looking at reality.
The reason why they're against it,
down.
It is because they're communists, basically. Like, if
It
you
is because
think about it, they're communist, they're sexist, they're homophobic, and they're racist. We get over why it's racist later.
Together, right? It's all one thing.
Yeah, they are all of it. It's amazingly how they cannot see how extremely bigoted they are.
Exactly. These idiots think that owning property is violence. And here's the thing, when they make the statement, they have property over the words they just said. It translates right into that, which is why we give accountability and responsibility and ownership of people to the words they say. It's property rights. Voila, right? You can't even condemn property without asserting it. Unless someone wants to, enlighten me as to
no, but
the metaphysical level. But I'm not seeing it.
The people who said property is self-contradictory. Can we say a few more paragraphs in this, because it's kind of funny.
Yeah, so I actually do need to wrap it up in like 15-20ish minutes. So let's go a little further into the article and see if we can't tidy it all up.
I think we should just we could just end up the article and going over to.
I mean, it's not very long. We're about halfway.
But we need to have time for the intersectionality afterwards.
So let me see here. So here's the next funny part about it, right? Is they go into the distinction between commercial surrogacy versus altruistic. Now, here's what's funny, is they're saying, okay, so in order for it to be altruistic, there's no money involved, right? And she says, maybe she's doing it out of generosity or for a friend, a daughter or a sister.
Yeah, not for a brother.
That's the thing. This is really subtle, right?
God,
it just reveals that, like, in order to try to paint the humanist picture, it always has to be for a woman, right? And this is the same.
Not humanist.
It's the same thing that feminists do when they say, like, imagine it was your mother or your sister or your daughter, right? And like they absolutely never personify males in the same way. They never use father, brother, son to humanize someone. And it's because they're sexist. It's because they're fundamentally misogynistic. And it's because they've been told that their aristocratic, privileged, entitled attitude is actually equality. And any negative externalities that are downstream from them being stupid bitches, well, it's actually the patriarchy and it's actually everything around you, right? And then insofar as women are like able to develop like borderline personality disorder, anything cluster B, anxiety disorders, like all of these mental health issues, like we encourage.
We're gonna go over those in a future intersectional episode.
We feed all of these, right? Like they're being sold the exact narrative that like they're being told that more high fructose corn syrup is going to make them thinner, right? So that's the structure we're looking at, and that's why this misandry, this is in there. Like maybe I'm reading a little too far into it. I get it. It's not a huge bit, but it kind of fits the narrative, and it's like
but she doesn't
see this all the time. I can see through this. Like I know you're a sexist, right? Like
Yeah, but she is, because she basically want to ban men from having access that women have, and she never even considered how male might feel about it because she's just sexist. She cites fucking Julie Binder, for
Well,
fuck's
and
sake.
that's the thing, right? Is it's like a really, really active, hateful misandrist, right, is very different from this. This is like they are so ignorant and privileged and fucking entitled that like it doesn't even occur to them to use the golden rule and apply it to a male ever. It's not part of their thought process. It's not part of their habits. It's not part of how they look at issues and analyze the world. And like you could forgive someone for missing stuff like this if their ideology wasn't predicated on being not sexist and being not racist and being an egalitarian and being fair and treating people fairly and caring about the truth and caring about justice, right? And the thing is
Which is
like
not.
we're all causey, right? Like we all agree to a degree, right? That yeah, like violent, horrible racism is bad. Like just vapid prejudice is not productive and it's not helpful and it's not fair. And like even if people have generalized prejudices, they're going to acknowledge that there's exceptions to the rules. They're going to acknowledge that it's not like a law of nature that people of such a distinction, right, are right. So like we already all agree on this, and because we know that that's the framework, yeah, they absolutely are open for criticism on these grounds. It's not just like, well, you know, you're kind of a dick about the anti-feminism thing because this shit's novel. It's like we might be relatively early to this, but everyone's fucking late, right? And like the first thing we have to do is admit that like men's issues got neglected, and like we need to think about why this empathy isn't kicking in. We need to think of ways to get that habit into people's brains because it's very unnatural to us as a species.
Right, but I think that's a perfect way of ending the article because we should just close them. We should just finish with the intersection.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make my point though, which is that literally what they're doing in trying to be like compassionate and ethical at the surface level, right, is making it so that you can't pay your surrogate. So on the one level, they're complaining like, oh, surrogates get the raw end of the deal, right? But then they hobble and limit all of the commercial aspects of it, which are the things that allow you to make that T-chart really fair and to make it an exchange that everybody's happy with. Oh no, now it has to have this framework of I'm helping out my sister, and how could you stop me from doing that, right? It's like,
well, but like sister doesn't need it, your brother needs it. That's the point. That's like what? It's like that's why Karen Strachan, she basically said it ago. Even when women don't want it, even when women don't need it, and even when someone else needs and deserves it more. No,
I'm sorry. You said women don't want it, don't need it.
No. I said wrong. Karen Strachan said a long time ago. That's what we. When I'm paraphrasing, she said something like, "That's what because we give it to them, even when women don't deserve it, even when women don't need it, and even when women don't, and even when someone else needs it and deserves it more."
Sure. Yeah.
That's a perfect. This is just confirming that she was right. Karen was right. No, fuck you. Karen was right. No way.
Karen was right about something. Damn.
About something in terms of
right about a second thing.
What? No way. Okay.
But I mean, there's truth to that. Like the truth of our dear Karen Strachan is, you know, as Alison Tiemann describes it, radically destructive social technology. So we shouldn't be surprised when people get pissed off when you know, rattle off anti-feminist talking points. It means it's working. If you piss people off, it means it's working.
This is proving that she's right, but I think we should close the article and then just finish with the intersection.
So let's see. I mean, I just feel like, okay, I just want to see their refutation of this. They say the Swedish inquiry refutes the argument that altruistic surrogacy is a thing, I guess. There's no proof, says the inquiry, that legalizing altruistic surrogacy would do away with the commercial industry. Well, wait a minute. What? Like, of course it would, right? Like, you banned the commercial industry, even if you think that people are going to find a way to get around it, right? Through the altruistic, you still dealt a massive blow to that industry. This is like this is communist fucking entitlement, right? It's like we're entitled to things entirely, right?
She's just gonna repeat herself over and over again. She's an idiot. communist sexist. That's all it is.
Right. So then they're just going to say, oh, well, you just pay them under the table and blah, blah, blah. Right. Which is like, yeah, which is why you like banning it is a retarded idea.
Yeah,
it's the war on drugs lesson, right? That libertarians understand and everybody else is a knuckle dragging retard. Right. That's the thing too. Is like I refuse to accept anyone who like you, if you're not a libertarian, you have to own the war on drugs. And how stupid it is. I truly, genuinely think that's a cross for all of the non-anarchists, non-libertarians to bear. I will put that cross on them and bury them. Let's see.
He's so idiot.
Right. So she says it means that they go through the exact same things as in the commercial industry, but get nothing in return, right?
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you give them something in return, you fucking retard? Yeah. Holy smoke, this one is dumb as fuck.
Just like this. She has to change her behavior and risk infertility, a number of pregnancy-related problems, and even death. She is still used as a vessel, even if she's told she is an angel. The only thing she gets is the halo of altruism, which is a very low price for the effort and can only be attractive in a society where women are valued for how much they sacrifice, not what they achieve.
Then pay her. No,
this is so hilarious, right? Like, just gender flip that. Oh man. We need to really stop valuing men for what they sacrifice. Could you imagine?
Oh, yeah, I've stopped doing that a long time ago.
Feminist bitch.
Oh god, this one is a fucking
looking at war monuments and then understanding that men are the victims, the primary victims of war, right? Not women, you Clinton voting tards, right? You horrible, bigoted fucking monsters, right? Women are not the primary victims of war. If you believe that, if you don't understand why that's a horrible, despicable thing to say, then you just don't have empathy. You're a psychopath, right? And you're a psychopath because you got brainwashed by a bunch of communist retards. So, like, but yeah, so she recognizes, right, the T-chart of it. And like, here's what's so funny though. When she talks about altruism, she's only talking about the social status that being perceived as altruistic gives you. The altruism itself is invisible to her. The fact that the woman did, in fact, do an altruistic thing, invisible to her. Even if it helps a woman, as she displayed there. She just erased that benefit completely. That altruism, if it doesn't translate into a personal benefit for the person, it is invisible. It is nothing. That's literally what she said.
Someone who's that materialistic is kind of funny, but it makes sense, but she'll also be communist. So
well, fuck, if you're going to be materialistic, then ditch the communism, okay? It's right there. Come on. Like, that's where the struggle is coming from. You're a shallow, materialistic bigot, and you're a communist who believes that we can't get anything of value through the material world and that we need some sort of transcendental spiritual thing. But fundamentally, you're a retarded, shallow, materialistic bigot, right? That's the conflict of leftists in general, and of really that which is called the right wing, which is just left light, you know? So, God, it's like, man, what a rake to step on in the final thing here, because she's trying to get poetic, right? Oh, she's merely a vessel. You could apply this to any job, right? Oh my God, my work is I'm being reduced to my hands for money.
No, but they're basically like, yeah, she's being a fucking retard.
God, but I love how it just comes together in a neat little bow, you know?
Yeah. Like, she's so like, she might be one of the dumber people I've ever met, honestly.
Who wrote this?
A Swedish woman who like
Haja Ekman.
Oh God, like, it's kind of funny that a woman like why does she care? This is insane. She cares about it happening in other countries. But I think we should move on to the other part now.
Being and being bought, prostitution, surrogacy, and the split South. This is feminist academics are the most like tiresome fucking charlatans in the world.
Do you mind if we go to?
So she just has the one article. It looks like. Oh, there's comments. Well, anyway, let's. Yeah, where are we going to next?
Yeah, I wanted to go over the intersection when it comes to this topic. I think we should close the article because it's kind of bother. It's so annoying.
I love this. Right off the bat, though, it seems it is somehow feminist to control how a woman uses her uterus nowadays, whether it be for commercial or altruistic reasons. This article is sickening and condemns women who were born or made infertile into a life of childlessness and marital undesirability. Shame on the author. I don't disagree.
Oh my god! Oh
I don't
my
disagree.
god, what a fucking own! What a
Another
fucking own!
patronizing, unpleasant article from the Guardian elite. Denial of choice. Control by the author's view of right and wrong. Unreal. Wow, just wow. This is just a push to control what women do with their bodies from the opposite end of the spectrum. I would carry a child for my siblings, no question asked. It wouldn't be exploitation. It would be love for my family. This feminist thinks the author is an extremist. Quite funny, a couple months ago when I raised the question if gay marriage was so off limits for criticism that no one dared to question the ethics of their use of surrogate mothers, my contribution was deleted within seconds for supposedly violating community standards. I wonder what has changed to make the above caption acceptable all of a sudden. Oh, I see. And she's saying she had an Elton John mention in there. She's saying Elton John made it look so wholesome and happy, which is like, I mean, maybe because it was, right? Like, who are you to say that Elton John
they just can't fathom that men might actually do something, cooperate with other. With
so this one here, this is more of like, well, what the fuck? How come? Are we gay bashing or aren't we? Right? This feminist is just trying to figure out what's allowed. A blanket ban
here's the best one.
Surely a less extreme position can be found, right? I think that probably resonates with a lot of people. I mean, for me, I'm only in favor of extreme positions because things should be based on principle, which means that it's always going to be extreme, right? Any non-extreme position is just cowardice and it's just negotiating with evil. As a woman, I'd like to say that because of people like Ms. Ekman, I've finished to identify myself as a feminist. In this article, she intentionally speaking only about bad cases. However, in every field could be bad cases. This isn't humans selling. So weird statement. This must be ESL, but that's fine. As for me, she must be like very Swedish. As for me, the most important that surrogacy is the only way to have the children to many people. There is no alternative by now. That's why we should develop ethical surrogacy. Also, I really pity that Guardian has posted this extremist article. This isn't feminism. This is fascism. Modern feminism has died, unfortunately. How's my European accent? Did that sound Scandinavian?
Or that's not German. That sounds more German.
German. You know what? I've been watching too much of Sabine. I've been watching too much Sabine. I just have a generic, funny foreign woman accent now. I like this. I love that she. I love that enough people are, sniffing the turd,
clowning her, dragging her. Oh, like that's beautiful.
Oh, and also even the baby M case got misrepresented. The court voided the surrogate contract, recognized the surrogate as the child's legal mother, and then determined who should have custody on the basis of the child's best interest, finding for the father, but giving the mother visitation rights. So that's interesting. So they voided the fact that it was a surrogacy and treated it as, okay, this guy over here is the father and the surrogate's the mother, and then did it the same way they would figure it out for like any other custodial thing.
And that makes
sense. That makes sense. And the father got custody in that case. Like, I'm sorry,
I think they looked at it because the mother had said that she didn't want it in the past.
There's approximately a 0% chance of a father like falsely getting custody when he doesn't deserve it, right? The odds are stacked against him that like if a man has custody of a child, right, and it's like through a court, then like he's probably certainly like the most qualified person to be the parent. Because if they could find any other excuse or any other alternative, they would have gone for that. And he has to compete with all those alternatives. And the mother has to like really deliberately make herself unfit, like actively to
or she can just say that she doesn't want it. So here's the funny part. If you have a child being born and the father wants it and the woman doesn't want it and leave it, then you already have surrogacy. So why not just make it official?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then this replier here just points out like it's interesting, right, that usually we just erase fathers in these circumstances, right? But then, of
Finding
course, the
things.
one case where they don't erase the father, oh, the parents are going to use it as they forced they forced her to give up the baby.
They didn't even mention that there was a father involved. They even just said, "Give up the baby." She didn't even mention that he was there. She just said, "Give up." That's great. That's interesting. That's
Yeah,
why
so I want to get caught up with the comments a little bit here, and then we'll put a bow on this. But we do have some more to go over with that other, because this other one, I can't wait to watch this later today.
Yeah.
But let me just get.
I haven't watched it because it's so frustrating, but that's gonna be later.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, wait a minute. She says, "Who was wrong?"
No, we don't go. No, don't go.
I'm
to
curious who he's referring to in this one. Was this when we were talking about Karen? I don't know, but
no, it wasn't. I was thinking about Karen because
well, no, I'm talking about the comment in the comment section.
Okay.
So he'll clarify shortly here. But then this one here, you guys might like Dr. Carolyn Borisenko. Yeah, I'm familiar with Borisenko. She was one of the ones who did right those hoax SJW articles, right, about like rape culture, the dog park, and everything. And then she's been like a very like active personality. I think Prince of Queens had beef with her. Man, so I am aware of her. I'm not familiar with her recent activities, but I know she's definitely been around.
Oh, she does that. It's very interesting, actually.
I might take a peek back over there. I might circle back to it. I will say that like I wasn't terribly impressed my first round. I kind of thought she was very much like she was kind of at like a red pill core, right? But like I'm looking for the real anti-feminism extremism, because I think that's where the truth is. I think that she's a little bit like purple pilled is kind of the flavor I came away with. But I will say I'm talking from my memory of maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So give it very little weight. I will reinvestigate her because I am a little curious now. Let's see. I'm pretty sure he was. But let's see. War on drugs is a war on people, 100%. Oh, I see. Karen chose the Israeli side. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to think that's downstream from her devil's advocacy. But I'm not familiar with the actual context. I don't think she doesn't really talk foreign policy a lot. I don't really see that as like her wheelhouse. Not to say she's like ignorant. I'm sure she knows more about the topic probably than the average person, certainly, right? But like when you think about Karen Strawn and you're going to her content, it's like it's gendered issues is kind of the. Let's see. She broke James Lindsay. Oh, yeah. Then James Lindsay is another character that like I've seen in passing, haven't engaged with. I forgot where he stood.
No, he was basically going over all this against CRT.
Anyway,
but I think
sorry, I just want to get caught up with the chat because I was neglecting it because I was looking at the article.
Yes, for a good reason. So, are you closing the article now so I can go to the next thing?
Yeah, we're done with this article, and now we're putting a bow on the stream.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's like the thing I want to say about the intersection about this, and that is when it comes to family planning and sexual orientation. That is that we know it's harder for men, and we did go over why it's harder for men. So, yeah, but it's also that let's just go from the lowest problem. That's for straight men, right? That's why I said you need to be able to get a woman and then like hire a surrogate. You can do that if you don't want to find a woman, but then you're gonna have to pay for it yourself, and that's gonna cost money, right? But then I'm gonna go over to sexual orientation. That is that if you're a bisexual woman, you have the same reproductive success regardless of who you're gonna have relationship with, regardless if that's a woman or a guy. If you're a man, then you only get that right, depending on jurisdictions, if you are in a straight relationship, unlike the bisexual woman. And if you have a gay relationship and the surrogacy is legal, then you have rights, but you still it's still more expensive. So you still have harder for you, but you still have the right, but it's still more expensive for you, right?
Wait a minute. Are you saying that if you have it's a gay couple, but one of them is bisexual.
No,
That
if
doesn't
you are,
really
yeah,
anything.
if you are a bisexual man, right, then you have the choice to go with a man or a woman. But if you choose a man, it's going to be way more expensive or impossible for you to have children, depending on jurisdiction. So you are very much encouraged to go with the woman, whereas bisexual women, they are free to choose whatever they want when it comes to
Right.
having families, and that's the difference, right? But if you are a gay man and you don't have that choice, you have even less, you're even more disadvantaged, and it's even further magnifying the intersection. And therefore, if you want biological children, then you need to go to a jurisdiction where you can have those. Otherwise, it's going to be expensive, right? And, or even illegal. And if it's and you cannot do it to the same-sex couple or as a single man in many jurisdictions. You need to be married to a woman. But you can do it in some jurisdictions, but it's still going to be more expensive because the options are limited. More so than the options for a bisexual man have more options. And a lesbian women have also more options, right? The gay men have the least options or have to pay the most money to get the same thing, I might add. But there's actually an additional. That's why if you are against surrogacy, you're usually against gay male couples having families, which many people say they are, and they are because they use misandries. That is literally what it is, right? But if you're against it for the process, it just went over why position to surrogacy is dumb. It's just fucking dumb and it's retarded. It doesn't make any sense. But it's just like an oppression of men, because if you have a ban and you are being oppressed for your sex and your sexual orientation. But there is a racial element to this too, right? And that's important to notice, and that is because if you're a guy, right, you're a different ethnicity, right? And then surrogacy and egg donor is legal in many jurisdictions, which is good. However, if you are, let's say for simple, that that gay couple is of the same ethnicity, for this instance, right? That means if there aren't any egg donor of their ethnicity available or many of their ethnicity in a jurisdiction where surrogacy is legal, it's going to be very difficult for them to have children of their own ethnicity. Then they would have to mix with other ethnicities, which their straight counterpart wouldn't really have to do, or the female counterpart would have to do, which is very unfair. It's a racial, because of your sexual orientation and your sex, your ethnic ethnicity, you as to part to contribute to your ethnicity survival and to have kids of your own ethnic genetic makeup becomes hindered. Usually that is because the straight people of your own ethnicity voting for having stupid laws in the countries where surrogacy is illegal. But also when it comes to where it is legal and collecting data on ethnicity is illegal. I don't know if there is any country like that, so I doubt that, so that's not going to go into it. But it's also when you're looking for egg donor in America, every ethnic group that isn't really recognized in America is going to be very hard to find egg donor of, which means that it's going to be very difficult of men, gay couples, or very rare ethnic groups to have their own children in that regard. Lucky for them, like that's not good or bad, but most men in America are polyethnic, means they have multiple ethnic backgrounds, which meaning that finding a surrogate, an egg donor that have the appropriate ethnicity, it's going to be a lot easier. But now he's talking about gay couples that have the same ethnicity. They need to find someone that are like them to have their children, because then both of their genetics will be in their offspring, because people of the same ethnicity have the same genetics.
Well, it's an interesting issue, right? So basically what it is that insofar as we are limiting and hobbling this industry, there's certain like benchmark thresholds where like people are like also getting classed out of like further development,
Yes.
right? So it's like yeah, at the basic level where it's like new and there's not a lot of infrastructure behind it, there's not a lot of support behind it. It's sort of like the ability to customize, right?
No, the ability to
do the surfacing, you're going to get what you're going to get. It's going to be closer to that on that spectrum than it is to designer babies on the other end of the spectrum. And the more that surrogacy as an industry is developed, the more it's going to tend toward designer babies.
Well, I wouldn't phrase it like that.
But I would say there's going to be a point though on that spectrum where it gets so close to designer baby that people are like, no, I don't want to fill out like a checklist sheet. I'm actually really okay with some of this being a surprise, right? Like,
No,
and I feel like there's kind of a core of things that people are like, okay, well, let's not make it a random mixed race baby in a white household, right? Like if you have the choice, like let's just make the races match, you know.
yeah, you
People have
would do
their
that.
attitudes toward that. I get that, like it's one of those things where it's like 90% of people are horrified and mortified if you say that out loud, but also like 90% of people would agree and their actions would conform with that preference.
Like I will basically say, like if a straight couple, they can have children of both their ethnicities, and gay couples can also do it, biologically speaking, with this technology being available. The only
Well,
problem is
usually,
legislation.
right? But if they're both polyethnic, are we going to be able to capture all the polyethnicities
No,
altogether?
here's
We
basically
never
what you're gonna be able to do,
can,
right?
even with natural genetics,
No,
but
no,
you can get
that's gonna. No,
approximate.
I have a solution. I have a solution for that. That is that if you're polyethnic, you have multiple ethnic origins, and so has your partner, right? You might even have some in common, right? It's a very simple solution. If you do you have to do you have an ethnicity in mind, for example, that I can use as an example?
Well, would it make a difference which one we choose?
No, not at all.
Chinese.
Okay, let's say there's like a couple, right? One guy is polyethnic, he's Chinese, and let's say he's a little bit of different Asian. He's Chinese, a little bit of like Korean and Thai. And let's say his husband is like, is let's say his husband is Korean and Laotian, right? Then, okay, so they have both Korean ancestry, but one have Thai and Chinese, and the other one have Laotian, right? If the Chinese guy is going to be the one who contributes with his genetic material, then the egg donor is going to be Laotian. While if the Laotian guy is going to contribute with his genetic material, then the other guy who's Chinese and Thai is going to they're going to use his egg donor who is Chinese or Thai. Make sense?
Right.
Because
You're
then you
just
capture as much as you can from both parents.
right. And yeah, I
That's
think
what I'm gonna do when I have kiddos.
there's just one other thing I wanted to comment on in the chat here. Obviously, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I think it's important to like discuss this issue floating out here, where Howard brought up that like, well, gay men can still father children, right? And obviously, he's talking about having mistresses siring them, right? Or like he has a wife, right, and has her for the purposes of having a wife, but like she's really a beard, and this is just kind of a way that gays used to exist because there's no other structure for
Yeah,
them
but we
to.
should have other structures, for fuck's
But
sake.
what I
Let's
just
be
want to
inside.
point out is it's like, yeah, but first of all, this isn't like a unique advantage available to gay men, right? Because any man can just do that, right? So it's not even so this isn't like some advantage that gay men have that offsets the disadvantage, right? That's the non-uniqueness problem. But yeah, you're saying, well, yeah, you could do it, but it's like, but like, what's so interesting about this is, like from the traditionalist perspective, and people might call bullshit on this, but I genuinely believe this. They find the idea of two gay people in a monogamous relationship having children and having a traditional family, right? Except for the fact that they're gay men. They find that more repulsive than a gay man marrying a woman, right? And then just being gay on the side. And then they're just being in a marriage that's like of convenience and like for that purpose.
Yeah,
And
that's a real ass homophobia. And I
and when
think
you look at that, right, it's like, so you want like either like irresponsible, like just siring random children outside of a family structure. You want this like chaos, right? And then like when they talk about family values, well, yeah, all of the positive things about family values come from like the stability of that structure and the responsibilities and obligations that come from those relationships. And when you allow for gay marriage and normalize homosexuality, you're allowing gay people to replicate the traditional structures. You're allowing it to become very traditional and for it to conform to standards that for all of human history, we've been saying these are things that everyone should want, right? Everyone should
Yeah, that's
want
what I want. Therefore, I'm
to
gonna do
someone
it.
and to have, right? It hasn't been until recently that people maybe question that, right? So it's something that's been like indisputably seen as just an obvious thing that anyone would want. And like there's this heterosexist idea that it's like they're perfectly comfortable just denying that to gay people. You know, and there's no intellect behind it.
Now,
There's no
only to gay male couples, by the way.
they're just stupid knuckle dragging bigots. And I genuinely believe that like if you take outcomes for gay men versus outcomes for straight men, the entire disparity insofar as gay men have worse outcomes, I would put 100% of it on heterosexism. I would genuinely do that. I would take the hardcore environmental constructivist position on that and say that measure is literally the measure of just toxic, discompassionate Christian bullying.
Yeah.
That's the measure of Christian virtue. They're not compassionate. That's why they say they're compassionate. They don't care about justice. They don't care about the truth. That's why they say they care about these things. And they do not believe in objective morality. That's why they say they do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I want to address a comment by guys that Asians aren't really mixed. Yeah, I know they are not really mixed in America, which is a hypothetical example. You can replace the Asian ethnic group with white ones and it'll be the same thing. You get it?
Yeah. Okay, so Howard just clarified that he's pointing out that like insofar as there's an advantage to bisexual men being able to like switch it or whatever, like gay men still kind of have some of that, right? It's like that's fair enough.
But not really, because you can't have a relationship that you like with someone you're
Yeah,
attracted
right.
to.
So I love that that's always like just erased from the conversation. It's like, did you forget? And it's like, if you're straight, yeah, you probably did forget.
Like you can't say a bi guy and a gay guy. Oh well, they are both impregnate a woman. I'm like, yeah, but that's like one is gonna like, the other one is not going to like. Like one can actually enjoy.
There was a little bit more passion on one side of that versus the other, right?
But and also like if you are with a woman that you don't find attractive and you think being with her is some sort of prison, you're actually more likely to be abusive towards her. So that's also a problem.
Well, yeah, because you're not going to offset all of the challenges of the relationship with like genuine, like emotional affection. You know, it
Of
just
course
makes
not.
sense. It's gonna be a colder, more business-like relationship, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and then it's deceptive to like an innocent woman. It's like terrible. Like,
well, and that's the thing too, is it's like they're also like they don't want it to be like an open thing, right? They don't want it to be like they want it to have the subterfuge and the deception because that's the only way that exists.
Oh,
anyway,
do you mind if I just clarify something?
I'm coming up on a hard break though.
Okay,
so.
I just want to clarify something. I want to say, you know, when I mentioned there's a racial issue beforehand, like I'm saying, if you have a gay couple and you're polyethnic, or even if you're not, right? If you are of ethnic groups that are common in countries where surrogacy is legal, then you have more option of finding an appropriate egg donor, right? If you have, for example, let's say German ancestry or like Irish ancestry, finding an egg donor in South Africa or Ireland and Australia is going to be kind of easy. If you are Circassian, then it's going to be kind of difficult.
Well, yeah, and the point is that insofar as we have these inequities, the solution is essentially globalism.
Or to just make it legal in every jurisdiction, right?
Right.
But another thing I want to point out is that if I took me, for example, right? It's going to be very easy for me in the United States to find an egg donor who is Scottish like me. So therefore I can go with that, right? But that's my dad's side of the family. My mom's side who's Walloon, right? I'm a bunch of other things, but I don't have to go into all that. Finding a Walloon egg donor is going to be hard because America does not collect data on Walloons. They collect data on Belgians, right? Which is not an ethnicity, it's a country with several ethnicities. So because Walloons aren't really recognized as an ethnic group in America like Scots are, it's going to be... So therefore, if I'm going here and therefore I'm going to choose an egg donor, I can't bother with the Walloon ancestry, but with the Scots one, I'm going to bother with that and pick the right one.
That's interesting, right? So then you're going to have basically selections for genetics that are based on which ones we kind of like essentially we're preserving some ethnicities over others.
Yes,
right?
and
just
that is
just through accounting, I guess, through
to recognition,
through
right?
clerical approximation, right? Yeah,
because some ethnic groups are not recognized in the United States, which is kind of like an issue, and this is where that issue and the issue of being a man and the issue of your sexual orientation all intersects.
yeah.
These are like the
I
magnifying
never
of
thought of that.
magnifying.
Yeah, it's a racial erasure by the pen. And again, the only solution, right, would be for these responsibilities and these services and this data collection and the preserving of it, and the responsible managing of this intelligence. It should be part of the private economy, because then
Exactly.
you have the consumer who realizes, well, wait a minute, you're erasing my grandpa, you're erasing this, you're conflating us with something that's different, and differences are different, and we should have accuracy, and I'm willing to pay for that accuracy, right?
Exactly. And because so many people are polyethnic, I don't say that's good or bad, but I'm saying that then you can still choose between one ancestry or the other. The ancestry is not recognized and it's not going to be chosen. And usually this is not much of a problem for straight couples because they know if they know their ancestry, they don't need to find an egg donor or even a sperm donor if they're lesbian, right? Then you need to find out, to be honest. But straight couple, you don't need to find any of those, right? So it becomes less of a problem, but it becomes very much a problem if you're gay, because then you don't have that opportunities because of the data collection limitations.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about like second generation? Like you're a child, like you're a surrogate child of a gay couple, and now,
no, I wasn't talking about that actually. I was just saying
okay.
that.
Well, I'm trying to figure out, because it's like if you're gay, you still potentially have family members, right? You still potentially have genetically related family. So I don't see that as unique for straight people, really.
No, I think you missed something completely. Basically, you said that, if you are gay, you use an egg donor because you want to subsidize the ethnicity of you or your partner, right? And because of your polyethnic, you can only choose the one that is being counted, as I give it my own example,
Right.
and not the other one. If you are a straight couple, you don't have that option because you can just breed naturally.
Well, we still have the option.
Yeah, but they don't need to have an egg donor, and they have the option. Well,
Okay.
a gay couple do need it, so it's going to be hard.
Well, but the straight couple might need an egg donor, right?
Yeah, if the woman is infertile. But gay couples absolutely need an egg donor.
Right.
Straight couples might just need an egg
So
donor.
this is really just it's a clarification, and it's a detail that is kind of downstream from the whole thing being obviously less accessible the gayer you are.
The intersection is basically like, first, like for men is a problem, and then it's like really the diet disabled men in the past, and now this direction is like for gay men, and then it is like for bi men it's harder, and then for gay men it's even harder, and then gay men with ethnicities in jurisdictions with ethnicities uncommon in jurisdictions where they are legally allowed to breed with each other are even further disadvantaged, and especially when those aren't properly counted compared to others.
Right. So yeah, like I said, it's the it's ethnic erasure. What would we call it? A genocide? It's a genocide by the pen.
No, it is not really, because
I know. Well, it would be a soft genocide, right?
It's genocidal. No, it is accidental.
I didn't mean to open that can of worms, but it is just funny to me that there's a whole debate about
basically
how hard we use the term genocide and how much it should be.
I would say any
qualifiers are okay to use. To me, it's just always like an amusing.
Any form of restrictions of surrogacy is genocidal, because you're preventing a man of an ethnicity to have children, because everybody has one. And if you need to have low birth rate and you ban surrogacy in that jurisdictions, then you are further depressing the birth rate. So that's absolutely part of genocide.
Yeah.
To ban surrogacy in general.
Well, I think I'm about ready to
me too.
wrap this up for now. But it is an ongoing conversation. So
yeah, you just wanted to go over the
I'm certain a lot of what we've discussed here is going to be coming up again when we do our response video to Runaway Sirens video that she uploaded.
I have to reply to the last comment, and that is that Walloons are not Scandinavians. They're Gallo-Frankish, like French and Luxembourgish people. And also, it doesn't matter how different Luxembourgish people and French people are from Walloons.
Well, you don't
Balloons
know what
are.
you're asking. Maybe he's just curious.
Yeah, I
Like,
know. But I know. But I just want to answer that. But it doesn't matter because we still are unique people that still want children of our own ethnicity. Like if we have a couple, right, and we want to keep them both for ethnicities, if we have different, then we should be able to do that. It shouldn't be a law that prevents us from doing that. We need to be able to know what ethnicity egg donor is, which you can do, by the way. But some ethnicities are not properly counted, so therefore it's harder to find those.
yeah, and I guess what I'll do is I'll put the other thing about it is like people might have different views as to whether or not like a person is like naturally entitled to controlling the race of their offspring. But
You
regardless
are
of
going to
your,
control who you breed with.
I mean, right? But
Gay couple do it
regardless,
all the time. Why can't we do that?
saying from like a racial egalitarian standpoint, right? From this very progressive, like I don't see color kind of thing, right? Still,
No, I am being
it is
racially
a better.
egalitarian.
Let me finish the point. God.
Oh, sorry. I need to finish afterwards.
What I'm saying is just that regardless of what your attitude is toward that being like a right or something that should be accommodated or makes sense, the fact of the matter is classes of people do have that power and that right?
Yes.
So
that other one should
regardless
have
of your attitude on it, it is an inequity. I don't really see a lot of people like forcing racial diversity from intergeneration, right, as like a concept, you know. So
No, but basically the only thing I'm saying is because some ethnic groups don't have that access, and if you have it race blind, then you're not going to give it access to everybody. You're just going to give it to the common ones. So if you want to be egalitarian, you have to look at every ethnic group's perspective. You can't just ignore one and not the other. Like you need to look at all of them. And we should be able to do this legally. If lesbian couples can do it, why shouldn't gay
because
couples?
I mean, even if you think it's morally repugnant, it's still ethically permissible at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So,
and why would it be morally repugnant for anyone? It's just retarded. Then they are genocidal. That's genocidal.
I don't know. I
Because
guess I have
no,
mixed feelings
you
on
shouldn't
that.
care
Like, I
about
wouldn't
your
use
race
that
offspring. Only I should.
Like, there's not nothing to the. I don't know. There's not nothing to having an ick factor towards like I'm white and I want a white baby. I'm not saying that it is bad, but I'm just saying I can get how people see that as racist and see it as shallow.
Yeah, because they're
But I
racist.
also think that perspective, they're kind of not really thinking it through. I don't know.
because
I'd have to kind of work out how I really feel about that. Because like I don't have as strong racial views as like you do, clearly, which is I think
Yeah,
very
I just
American.
want all races of all sexes to have rights, have opportunities. But all the things I'm saying is to make things more accessible and more equal for men of every ethnicity and every sexual
Right,
orientation.
and undeniably that's the case, right? It's just that we don't examine any of this ugliness, which is already there, already prevalent, already going on unquestioned, until it's the case that we're expanding, access.
We need to do, because if you don't, then only some men's issues get counted and not all of them. If you only talk about without talking about race, then all the common ones like Irish and German or English men in America, they're gonna have all the opportunities, but the small one is not.
Right, and then you're gonna have these like red herring things where it's like, oh look, here's a victory for men, but it's like, yeah, but because it didn't have a better, more advanced, nuanced perspective, it actually made things worse for some subclasses of men, and it's not fair.
Yeah,
and that's the point of the series. That is the point of the
time.
series. We've done it. We came full circle. So I'm gonna end it here.
That's good.
Good to see some of the usual suspects. Thank you so much for coming in here, and yeah, I think this was a good. I think there's a lot of density here. There's a lot of like stuff. I think I'll probably give this a re-listen and see if there's other things that kind of stand out, that like other little things for us to tangent down and give dedicated conversations to. So, all right, thanks everybody for showing up. Oh my goodness, we were 2 hours. I was shooting for 40 minutes. How time flies.
Yeah.
But I gotta work. I gotta drive my car to work through the storm. So I'll see you guys later. Keep it easy.